I could have gone on, and I mean, these gentlemen aren't in the film, and I could have interviewed them, and they could have been in the film as part of the same. There were so many people. I tried to interview enough people that you got a sense of connectedness, but also to give them space. I don't like documentaries where it's like, I call it ABC editing, where you go boom, 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 and no one gets a chance to really speak at length. And I tried to pick people who represented different disciplines. Lorna Simpson represents a kind of art thing. Obviously, Lisa Jones represented the sort of the avant-garde black women's feminist art thing that was happening. So I tried to capture a lot of the different worlds that were intersecting in Fort Greene. I do feel that the amount of work that came out of there and the amount of artists who came through there is one of the most impressive collections in the history of black art. And I really mean it, because New Orleans, you can speak about music, but we had hip hop, we had jazz, we had rock, we had different, so many writers. I mean, Martha Southgate, the novelist, Colson Whitehead, I mean, it goes on, Torrey, Kevin Powell, half the staff of Vibe magazine when it started lived in that Fort Greene, Clinton Hill area. So in the spoken word scene, you know, Most, and Common hung out there because he was in the area. Wendell, why don't you jump in?
I concur. I mean, the thing that was so amazing about Fort Greene was the fact that you knew everyone challenged you, no matter what circle you lived in. I remember dating and living in the building with Lorna Simpson, and below her, Carrie Mae Weems and Thelma Golden, who now is the curator for Studio Museum of Harlem. That's the art world. And then we did Carl Hancock Rux's play with Sandy Wilson, who was the woman I was dating, who actually did Sidewalk Stories with Charles Lane, which is a phenomenal film if you haven't seen it. You know, a part of that whole new black cinema that was happening. And then the actors in the community. And designers also, I think of Karen Pugh, who was assisted designing with Ralph Lauren. And I met her, she walked down DeKalb with these aqua blue suede boots.
I remember those boots.
Right? And it was sort of like what Lisa Jones was talking about. Like, what's up, hey Karen, how you doing? I love them boots. You know? But also, I think of the actors. I remember the day that Corey Glover at an audition turned to me and said, "Man, I'm giving up acting." I'm like, "Man, we're 20, so how can you?" Well, no, and he did Platoon, the movie. But he said, "Well, I'm doing this musical thing now." And I was like, "Bruh, you don't go from acting to music. Why don't you just stick to one thing?" He said, "No, I think we actually have a little something." I said, Living Color? I ain't never heard of that band. And then that's when I learned about the whole Black Rock Coalition. So you had Vernon Reid, and you had Michael Hill, Bluesland, you know, and you used to go and see all those cats, and then I saw Erykah Badu. And so all the worlds collided, and then all the actors. Intade Nwine, who's actually on Treme with me, I met in Fort Greene. There was Saul Williams, who was an actor coming out of NYU. There was Dante, this kid I knew who then became Mos Def. So it was
Roger Guinevere Smith.
Roger Guinevere Smith. And then also we had the Paul Robeson Theater that actually never really did anything.
Yeah, it still hasn't done anything. It's been there
we're going to fix it up, we're going to do something. But we used to see actually, you know, Paul Robeson Jr. walking around. So it was always inspiring. And that was the thing that was so fantastic. Then you evolve to the place where actually you're working with people. I was fortunate enough to have Nelson hire me for his film Life Support. Rosie hired me for this film, 24-Hour Woman. We always bother Spike, that's true. Spike would walk down to Cal. I really think Spike got his walk from people bothering. "Hey Spike, man, come check me out. I'm gonna be in, you know, Shakespeare in the Park. You put me in your movie."
I wanted to ask either Terence, either one of you all, because you were teenagers here, you went to NOCA, and I'm just going to assume that you left because you felt that you had to leave New Orleans to become what you have became. And so my question is, do you believe that in this state that we're in, that someone has to leave New Orleans to become great, successful in the arts?
Well, I know you both can answer this. For me, I had to leave New Orleans to experience the world. One of the things about New Orleans, and I love my city, I love it to death. That's why I've been living here since 1995. I moved. As a matter of fact, when I left Brooklyn, Spike was pissed. He said, man, why you leaving Brooklyn? I said, this is your home, dude. It ain't my home. I'm going home, you know. But the thing about New Orleans is that sometimes we can become so consumed with New Orleans and we don't really get a chance to experience what's happening in the world. See, the thing that we talk about in this neighborhood, all of us, I probably would guess about 1% of us was from Fort Greene.
I was from Brooklyn, but not from Fort Greene.
Right. You know, I mean, everybody I met was from some other place. It was the meeting place where all of these people were coming together because we all felt that there was something bigger to experience. So I do think that the same thing exists today, you know, because you have to go out and experience the world. It doesn't mean you can never come back and influence and have an influence in your community. I'm not saying that. But I do think that it's incumbent upon artists, or young folks in general, to go out and see what's out there and see what other people are doing and what other people are thinking about.
I concur. I mean, that's the most important thing. You have to expand your view of the world. You're going to be, as an actor, you're a student of human behavior. You have to go and see how people actually create their culture all over the world and broaden your human experience so that you can then be very specific. Because the more universal, the more specific you are with your work, the more universal you become. Because people identify with the humanity and the thread that's in that. But if you only restrict your viewpoint of the world, you'll never understand how. I remember one time I was in Thailand and I saw a funeral. I was waking up on the beach with a hangover, and I heard, and they had a 3-day funeral service for this guy. He was big in this neighborhood in Phuket, and they went to the funeral. And I fell asleep on the beach again, and about an hour later, like, I was like, oh, that's the second line. You know? You started to immediately understand that people will, Albert Murray, who's a great philosopher who influenced a lot of the young jazz musicians and writers, said the intersection of life itself and people, that intersection and what they create is culture. It's a tangible, real thing. And to see how people create that intersection all over the world will enlighten you about how you do it. So I tell people to leave New Orleans so they'll understand what we have here even more.